All right, guys, welcome back to the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. I'm your host, John Heck. Okay, so we're going to be taking things over to the female perspective of the iron game. The lady I have on the podcast right now has been an absolutely dominant force in powerlifting, is an IFBB pro in women's bodybuilding. Uh, I've known you, Hunter Henderson, for a few years now, and I'll go into that origin story a little bit. But Hunter, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. This is great. It's good to see you
Yes.
too.
Yeah, good to see you as well. And you're broadcasting from Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, when I met you, we were out in the Midwest in Kansas City. So
Uh,
you're far away from home, huh?
yeah. So I just kind of got to the point in Kansas City where, and I hate to say, I hate to sound, this is going to come off like cocky or conceited or whatever, but it is the truth. Um, every room that I walked in, I was the best one there.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anyone there to push me or, you know, terrorist me. And your environment is such a big, it's such a big thing. Who you surround yourself with, who you're training around, who you're friends with, like that is huge. So Vegas had always been kind of on my list. I had always, my best friends are here. Um, and now it's like I walk in the room and there's minimum like 3 Olympians there training, or there's a strongman over in the corner, or it's like, I'm constantly surrounded by so much talent, so many people doing better than me. And that's one of the big reasons why I came here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that is absolutely crucial to once you've reached the level that you got to. I mean, you let's face it, you outgrew where you were at in Kansas City, and no disrespect out there.
Yeah.
When I met you, you were training at JP Price's gym, which he is an incredible former powerlifter himself. JP, if you're listening to this, shout out to you, man. Love you. But you didn't have many people around you pushing you. And Louis Simmons has got a quote, if you run with the lame, you develop a limp. You're just, in other words, if you're surrounded by people where you're better than all of them,
Yeah.
you'll kind of stay at that level you're at. Whereas if you have people who are better than you, you've got that sense of urgency. They're pushing you. And that's so crucial.
Because those people, they're not coming down to meet you. You have to come up to meet them. So it's like I I got better when I came here, and it's been really, really positive.
Did you kind of have someone give you that advice saying, listen, Hunter, it's probably time you move on to a bigger and better horizons? Or did you kind of intuitively know, like, hey, if I'm going to continue to progress, I've got to surround myself with talent?
So my best friends, like I said, are here, Joe and Brianni, and they had been like, "Hey, you should come to Vegas. Hey, you should come to Vegas. Like, there's a lot here. There's great gyms. There's great environments. Like, you'll grow." But ultimately, I just realized I wasn't happy. Uh, I was just in situations that I had outgrown. Like you said, I was a big fish in a small pond, and I wanted more. And there was personal reasons too. Like, I had lived in that area my whole life, so I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and learn and explore and grow. And so I don't know. I think it'd be a shame to spend your whole life in one place.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's an important thing to touch on because I think a lot of people are they don't have the confidence to make a step like that. And you
Yeah.
obviously you've kind of got that champion mindset, like, hey, I'm not going to be satisfied being the best one here, the big fish in the small pond, where a lot of people they enjoy that. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to have the insecurity of being around people who are better than them. Whereas you're like, no, 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 I want to be pushed. I want that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, your comfort zone, it's nice, it's comfy, it's warm, it's everything, and stepping outside of that is hard. It is so hard. When I came here, I basically sold everything I owned. I had my clothes, a few like kitchen items, and that was it. I basically restarted my whole life here. And that is not easy. That is so hard. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it definitely comes down to confidence and courage and just believing in yourself.
Yeah, bet on yourself, 100%. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a great move for you. Well, I've got a little bit of a mixed audience. So I've got, people from the powerlifting side who all of
Yeah.
them are going to be familiar with you. I've got people from the bodybuilding side who now most of them I'm sure are familiar with you, but I'm also coming from the sports performance world, spending most of my career in football. So I've got a decent bit of people who may not know of you. So let me give a little context. I'm going to gas you up a little bit here. I don't want to jump the gun, but you get into these conversations of like greatest of all time, GOAT conversations. And I'm not, I don't want to necessarily say you've reached that status in powerlifting yet or bodybuilding yet. But when you look at what you've achieved in both, I talk to people and I say, hey, I think you got to consider Hunter Henderson in potential GOAT talk when it comes to the iron game, strength athletes in general. I kind of compare you to a Stan Efferding almost, who, there's people who have competed in powerlifting who transition to bodybuilding or vice versa.
Yeah.
But there are very few who are pros in bodybuilding and also all-time world record holders in powerlifting, hence why the Stan Efferding comparison comes to mind. He was a legitimate pro bodybuilder and obviously a dominant powerlifter, which you are both of those things, and that's very rare.
Yeah. So I definitely, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near the top in either sport, actually. Currently I'm ranked third in the world for powerlifting overall.
Which for most of us, that's pretty near the top.
Yeah, it's pretty damn close. But I don't feel like I've peaked yet, in that. But the reason I'm, focusing on one sport over the other is because I felt like bouncing back and forth was prolonging those goals, because it takes time, it takes time to get lean. It takes time to build strength back up. So focusing on one sport over the other is probably a smarter move than bouncing back and forth like I was. But definitely I feel like a newbie in bodybuilding. I don't feel like, I've been bodybuilding for like a year now total, because I did like a short stint in 2021, and then I competed this past year. So it's like a year-ish total in bodybuilding. So I'm still very new. I lack a lot of like base knowledge. So I appreciate the sentiment of greatest of all time, but it just mentally for me, I don't feel like I'm there.
Yeah, and again, that just speaks to your mindset of, you're not satisfied. You're chasing higher and higher and higher. And I think that is something that's going to get you to that greatest of all time status. And again, just what you've accomplished now in powerlifting and then what you've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time in bodybuilding is remarkable. And it's scary to think that you've only kind of scratched the surface. And how old are you, Hunter? Are you 30 years old, 29?
Just turned 30.
Yeah. Okay. So you and I are about the same age. So, and I mean, the lifespan of a bodybuilder, even powerlifting, like you're not hitting that peak until you're in your late 30s. So I mean, you still got your best years ahead of you, especially considering how new you are to bodybuilding.
Yeah, which is so exciting and crazy to think about.
Yeah, I know. And I can't wait to watch the progression.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just kind of set the stage here for where I want this discussion to go. And then I'll give the floor to you to kind of go over a bio. But, I want to I was excited at the prospect of having you on because there's so much stigma and there's so much negative dogma around women in the iron game. Right. And I'm sure and I'll let you speak on this in a minute. I'm sure the amount of hate that you get online, whether it's, the mainstream public do not like the idea of women in strength sport.
No.
But it's not just them, it's also like men in strength sports. And I'm sure it stems from an area of insecurity. They don't like seeing women squatting 600 pounds. They don't like seeing women with muscle.
Yeah.
And so giving you the opportunity to get up here, talk about your badass career and your mindset and speak out to other women who are wanting to pursue the same thing. I'm excited for that opportunity, because one thing I've always respected about you is it seems like you give zero fucks about all the haters. Like, I mean, I was scrolling through your Instagram and I'm, go to the comments. Of course, you see all the inevitable hater comments and like,
Oh, it's bad.
you just comment back, like, just doesn't bother you a bit, or so it seems. And, you've been so willing to really put yourself out there. I mean, we'll go into it a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got an OnlyFans out there. Like, you've just embraced it. And I fucking love that. I think that's so cool. So anyway, let's start here. Just give the people a little bit of a bio, a resume, and some of your accolades and what you've achieved so far.
So I'm 30 years old. I grew up in the Midwest, started powerlifting. I started out as like a gym bro, had no idea what I was doing. I thought carb loading was eating cookies back then. Had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted, I don't know where I got the idea of like getting big, but there was just one day where I was like, I want to be muscular. Like I would just want to be a big woman. Don't know where I got the idea, but I just ran with it. So I did like 2 years in the gym, no guidance. And then I had a friend and he was like, I told him that I saw a video of Stacy Burr, who is also a powerlifter. And I told my friend, I was like, hey, I think I want to do powerlifting. Like, that looks really cool. And he was like, okay, I know a gym, JP Price.
Mm-hmm.
So the day I met JP, he was like, okay, like, let's see your squat. Here's this PVC pipe. And up to this point, I had only ever squatted on a Smith machine. So I legitimately could not squat this PVC pipe. I fell over. Like, couldn't do it. Fast forward a couple years, and now I'm an all-time world record squatter. One of the best female squatters in the world, actually. And then I think it was back in 2021, I was cutting weight for the Kern. And I was lean, like, lean. And I told my coach at the time, Matt Jansen, I was like, I think I could do a bodybuilding show. And he was like, well, you look like you're 4 weeks out. So the original plan was to just do a local show in Nebraska. Today I did it. Cool, done. And as he started to continue dieting me down, he was like, I think you have something here. He's like, I think you need to pursue this a little more. And so the local show turned into USA's, got my pro card. And then a week later, I did the Tampa Pro, and I ended up getting second. So just one placing away from going to the Olympia my first time around. Which is, at the time, I didn't realize, like, holy shit, that's huge. Like, that's cool as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have, like, I don't know, the perspective, I guess, to realize, like, what I had just done. Then I switched back to powerlifting, got a few more world records, and this past year I did bodybuilding. I got second at Chicago Pro. I won the Titan Grand Prix, and that qualified me for this past year's Olympia, where I ended up getting 13th, which at the time I was like, because I'm like a competitor, so getting 13th, I'm like, shit, I stopped, like,
Right.
back, I'm pissed about it. But then I also had to, like, take a step back and be like, this is where you're starting. You're starting as the 13th best in the world. That's nuts.
That is nuts.
That doesn't make sense, okay? But yeah.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. I mean, we're going to unpack all of that.
Yeah.
And you first met JP, and for those of you who don't know, JP Price, he was an incredibly decorated powerlifter himself, 1,000-pound plus raw squatter.
Yeah.
I believe at one time he himself was an all-time world record holder. But anyway, how old were you when you first, you go to JP's gym, you start getting powerlifting? How old were you at that time?
I had not graduated college yet. I was still in college. I would say maybe 23, 24-ish.
Okay. So I would have met you a little bit after that. I remember I was visiting JP's gym And so my dad is the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. My family lives in Kansas City now, so I was visiting them. I went to JP's gym. I know, I'm freaking psyched for him. He's chasing that 4th Super Bowl ring, so go Chiefs. But anyway, so I was in Kansas City. I was visiting. I was aware of JP. I went out. We corresponded on social media, so I went out and trained over there. And then I remember I see this girl squatting like 405 or something to depth, and I was like, oh, who the hell is that? And they're like, oh, that's Hunter. She's really strong. And I was like, yeah. And then I remember like a year or so later, I get on Instagram and I see you squatting 500 plus or something. I'm like, holy shit, that's, I remember I met her a couple years back in Kansas City. And then next thing I know, you're exploding onto the powerlifting scene. You're this huge deal, and you're bodybuilding. So it was really cool from afar to see just the rapid growth that you had. So, okay, so you made GP, you're starting from scratch, you're learning how to squat. Did it come to you quickly?
Kind of, yes and no. I think my first meet, I totaled just under 1,000. So,
Yeah.
not bad. I squatted like 350 at my first meet ever. So,
And at the time, as you were you're venturing into powerlifting, were you getting support in your life, your family, your friends, or were people kind of like, what the hell are you doing?
yeah. So, no one in my family really is athletic or anything like that. So, I remember my mom and dad came to my first meet, but they had no idea what was going on. And even to this day, my mom still doesn't quite understand. Like when we were walking around at Olympia, people were like, hey, like picture, autograph. And she's like, I didn't realize. She's like, I didn't know it was, you were, and I was like, yeah, mom.
That Mrs. Henderson, your daughter is a little bit of a big deal in our world.
A little bit. But they've been supportive. They didn't quite understand the PEDs. I remember the first time I went home after I had started them and my voice had considerably dropped, and they were like, what is going on? And I told them, and they were accepting, but they were like, please be smart. Like, they didn't know anything about it, but they were like, just please be smart, please be healthy about it. And I was like, okay.
Well, I'm glad that you got the support from the family,
Yeah.
although I can highly relate to just people not quite getting it. I mean, most people, they haven't been exposed to this world. They're not familiar with strength sports. They're certainly not familiar with the world of PEDs and all of those things. And, especially as you get into bodybuilding, just some of the things that go on in bodybuilding, it's so foreign to people. And I mean, just like eating like a bodybuilder. I mean, people see you with prepped food, and they treat you like you're an outsider,
Yeah.
like you're an alien.
Yeah.
When did you make that transition over to the enhanced side?
It was, so I did my first 2 meets, and the second meet I had totaled like 1,200 something. And that's when I was like, considering just kept asking my coach at the time about ATWR and like what, I had done my research, and I was like, I think I want to go this route. That was maybe like 24, 25-ish, maybe.
Got it. And
Yep.
was that just, were you nervous making that move? Were you worried, like, is this going to change me physically? Is this something I want to do? Or were you just like single track mind, screw it, I want to be the best. We're all, putting all my eggs in this basket.
A little bit of both. I remember I like wrote the day that I took my first ATWR dose. I like wrote the day in my notes app, so I would never forget it. But I was also like, I know that I can do something extraordinary in this sport. Like, this is going to help me get there. So I was a little bit of both.
When did you realize that you had something special?
After my second meet, because I at that time I didn't even know, because do you know what open powerlifting is?
Yeah,
like the ranking, the online database. Yeah, I had done the math and I had figured out, what I would need to do to become #1 in the world, and I saw what the current world records were, and I was like, I could do that. Like, that's not crazy to say out loud. Like, that's not unreasonable. So probably after my second meet that I had ever done.
Got it. And at the time, you were working with a coach at the time?
Yeah. I was working with someone.
I know.
Uh,
I'm okay. We can remain unnamed, for personal reasons. But let's just talk about the training side of it. Um, okay, so you do a couple meets, you're looking at open powerlifting, you're seeing all the numbers that are out there, and you're like, okay, I've got a shot to do this. You're looking at these numbers, you're like, I can get there.
yeah.
What did your training look like at the time? If you recall, just kind of from a programming style, training
Yeah.
style.
So when I first started out, I was primarily conjugate. So lots of bands, lots of chains, lots of, that sort of thing. Which I really liked at the time. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember JP and everyone in that gym
Yeah.
was largely conjugate based.
Yeah.
Did that hold true over the course of your time in powerlifting? Did you stay on the conjugate programming, or did that evolve?
That evolved. Even with that same coach, it evolved. We moved away from conjugate. Because after him, the coach I had after him, it was no conjugate whatsoever. Um, I do think that it has its benefits, but you know,
Yeah,
everybody responds differently.
conjugate training and raw powerlifting, it's a little bit of a polarizing thing. There's some people who are like, they're gonna die on the West Side Hill, and
Yeah.
conjugate is life. And then there's other people in powerlifting who are like, that's for geared lifters only, that's no transfer over to raw. And you look at most raw powerlifters today, most of them are not doing conjugate.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, it does have its place. There are certain things that I like about it, and obviously it was a component of your start, and you had success with it early on in your career. Um, so okay, so you do your second meet, you make that little transition over to the enhanced side, and you're like, okay, I've got a shot to do something special. What was the kind of the progression like from there, and where did you ultimately end up? Some of your best numbers and best totals in the sport?
So I think I did a meet in California after that one. And then the meet after that was here in Kansas City. I forget what it's called. But that's where I got my first all-time squat record. I think it was 534 at the time. And then after that, I did the Kern US Open. I squatted I forget, 6 something in knee wraps, which that was my big meet. Like, that's where I really broke out, was at the in 2021. And then after that, I went to bodybuilding. Um, got my pro card, did all that stuff.
So was that still your best squat to date?
No, my best squat in sleeves is 589. My best squat in wraps is 687. My best bench is 369, and my best deadlift is 589, somewhere in that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry. Can you repeat that squat number in reps again? Would you say 687?
687.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
I attempted 700. This was at the Ghost Clash last year, beginning of last year. Attempted 700. I got folded like a pancake.
well, still, I mean, 687. And also, like, you're not, you got big quads, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at your lower half and you're like, okay, she's
Yeah.
clearly a strong squatter, but you're not like the typical round bodied, big
Yeah.
midsection built to squat necessarily. I mean, so for someone like you who's got the physique of a bodybuilder, you don't have all that leverage through the midsection
Yeah.
to squat something like that. And I've watched you squat, you bury your squats to depth. I mean, that is mind-boggling, insane strength. And in my opinion, like, what, you know, going back to some of the goat talk, like squatting 687 the way you did, like, to me, that is one of the most remarkable feats of strength that I've ever seen. So that's freaking sick. So when was it the Kern that, you know, you kind of, you're on the map now, people know of you and you're being talked about?
And definitely the Kern was when people were like, oh, who is this person? Like, wow. I started getting a larger social media following. Um, Obviously it was not all love. A lot of it was hate.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, people don't like what they can't understand. So a woman, a big muscular woman, who's incredibly strong, doesn't make sense. So online it got pretty rough, especially so I have stress urinary incontinence as well, and people do not like that. So I definitely got a big following when there was like this I think it was a comedian at the time. He had somehow found a video of me deadlifting and he had reposted it, he had talked about it, he had made like a little meme video out of it and it went wild. It went so wild. I had to like delete the app for a while because it was just every day like hateful comments, disgusting, like just shit. You know, when I was still like new to the scene, I was still like figuring things out. I wasn't as secure in myself
Right.
so a lot of that, you know, that really like got to me. Like people calling me ugly, like that got to me. That was heavy. But then I had to like tell myself like these people, they hold no significance in my life. None. Why would I give their words significance?
Right.
And then also it comes down to like knowing yourself. Like I know things about me that whatever you say will not change what I know. So you can say whatever you want to. It's fine. Um so yeah, these days it doesn't like there's a video I posted right before Olympia and it also went crazy. Like you're a man, you're this, you're that, you're all this just really hateful stuff. And it doesn't bother me. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, for those in my audience who aren't familiar with this, you know, talk about the stress urinary incontinence. It's a very common phenomenon for women when they're deadlifting. Just that abdominal, intra-abdominal pressure, it just causes you to release some of your bladder, and you know, you
Yeah.
pee a little bit, and sometimes like that's visible when you're on a powerlifting platform, and it's a completely common thing, particularly with women. But
Yeah.
you know, of course, that's something that people see, and you know, they freak the fuck out about it when
Yeah.
they see it. And then, you know, someone like you, that's getting circulated everywhere. So, and I personally, I know what it's like to deal with online hate. When I was a football player,
Yeah.
I was a freshman, we were in a big game, and I had a penalty that got a touchdown called back. We ended up losing the game, and I get on the bus and I open up Twitter, and fans, UNC fans, my own school, they're DMing me, they're adding me on Twitter. John Heck, fuck you, John Heck, go kill yourself, this and that. And I mean, that, like, that crushed me.
Yeah.
Like, it totally crushed me because I had not been exposed to that.
Yeah.
And then it gave me anxiety the next time that I went out to play. It's like, like that can absolutely fuck with you. So, you know, there you are, you're climbing the ranks, you're starting to gain a little bit of notoriety, and then inevitably, you know, you get the big following, you get more eyes on you, and you're going to get that hate. And we talked about it at the beginning, just the mainstream public, very unaccepting of women in strength sports. I mean, though the stigma is, you know, this idea of the ideal feminine body, and how women should behave, and then people see you squatting big and you've got muscle, and then like I don't know what it is that just gets to people to the point where they feel the need to like pull up the comment section and take time out of their day to write some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of it, when it's men, it's just insecurity. They see a woman squatting or deadlifting a weight they could only dream of touching
Yeah.
in their life, and it bothers them. They feel this need to like tear you down.
Yeah.
So, you know, so initially it like you said, I'm sure it was hard to deal with. And did it almost push you out of the sport? Was there ever a time like it made you question, like, can I do this? Do I even want the public spotlight?
No, not really. No, there was like, so after the initial, like, oh my God, why are you peeing thing? I tried anything and everything to like keep pee from hitting the
Yeah.
floor. I would go to the bathroom before the lift, after the lift. I would have like multiple pads down there. It was a mess. Just trying to like mitigate that, or I just wouldn't record top sets, or I wouldn't post top sets. I would just keep that from the public because it's like I'm just gonna get shit on.
Right.
Like
Was and
people aren't looking at the weight; they're looking at that, and that's all they see.
right. And yeah, I mean, you just mentioned how eventually you were able to really shift that mindset. Was there kind of like a click moment where you that changed in your mind? Was that kind of gradual over time?
It was gradual. I just had many talks with myself, and I just, like I said, these people have no significance in my life. And the people that were around me were so supportive. There were people that were helping me clean it up. There were people like, fighting back online, like talking back to these people. So the people that matter don't mind. And the people that don't matter, they mind. And that's fine because they don't matter, you know?
Yeah, and I mean that's so true. And the strength community, it's usually such a good one.
Yeah.
And you know, like at JP's gym, the people are so good there, and the people in the powerlifting community are generally awesome, and they'll have your back. And everyone in our world sees how badass what you're doing is, and loves that, respects that, wants that. And the outside world, they don't get it. And that's the same with every sports. I mean, you're always going to have these just haters from the outside, just seeing things they don't understand, and they just want to chime in. But it's like, you know what? You're some faceless nobody behind a keyboard, and then here you are doing something absolutely remarkable
Yeah.
with your life, which I think is awesome. Did you ever have people in your own circle, whether it was men in relationships or friends, as you started getting good and great and probably, you know, surpassing them, was there ever any friction there, or were people truly always supportive in your circle?
I always felt support. Like
Yeah.
it didn't matter what my goal was. People were like, okay, like let's do it. Let's go. Their squat Sundays at SBC was a huge, huge thing when I was in Kansas City. Like everybody was there at like 10 a.m. and we all went crazy. Like you never had to ask for a spot. Everyone was there. Like they were always cheering you on, always supportive. It didn't matter like how high I climbed. That never changed.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have difficulties dating? Is that is something that
Oh,
you struggled with?
I'm single as shit. It's hard. It's so hard because it's like I did the dating profiles,
Yeah.
online, but so I had this thing where I was like talking shit on men. No offense. Um, I saw a guy and he was like getting a handoff for like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was very big on self handoff. So I was like, if you're a man and you can't self unrack 300, then red flags. Um, and I remember I was on like Twitter or something, and a guy had matched with me, and sent me a message, and the first message was, "I just want you to know I can self unrack 350." And I was like, "No, not." I deleted the app immediately. I was like, "I can't do this." It is hard. It is very hard. I don't know if it's like a security thing or I don't know. I'm also just not gonna choose anybody and everybody. Like you said at the beginning, like who you're around is so important. Who you have, who you choose to spend your life with is so important.
Would you date a man who you were stronger than?
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it.
I'm sure you have. I was going to say, I mean, the pool of men out there who are stronger than you, that's a very small percentage. Full disclosure, I have never squatted 687. So, I mean, I'm watching you do this and I'm like, I just think it's so cool. But, I'm sure for men, if they're dating you, there's that little insecurity factor. Like
I'm sure.
my lady's stronger than me. Like, you know, so I'm sure that was always tough, but I can tell you, so I'm a very polarizing human myself. I'm 6'7", 300 pounds plus, tattoos, beard. Like it's a very small percentage of women in the world who are drawn to me. I mean, most of the time people see me, it's like grab your torch and pitchfork, the massive ogre human, right? No, I'm happily married. Luckily enough, I found a woman who was into all this. But with people like us who've kind of reached a little bit of an extreme with a physique and a stature, like it eliminates a large percentage of the dating pool.
Absolutely. And I understand that, a large muscular female isn't everybody's taste. That's totally fine. That probably plays a big role in it too. Yeah,
But
it'll happen.
what I've learned though is when it comes to people like us who kind of got that unique look, it's like maybe 80% of the world wouldn't go for us, but that niche group that does freaking love it. Like the men who love the quote unquote the muscle mommy, as they say, will absolutely bet a shot. You know what I mean? Um, and kind of just riding this note a little bit, you've really put yourself out there here in recent years with the OnlyFans, and I'm sure that has, if the family was raising questions about the ATWR, I'm sure they've raised some questions about this.
Yeah.
What made you want to do that? What made you want to put yourself out there to that level?
So it was literally like, I don't know, and I'm sure any woman watching this, like, I would post something just completely innocent on Instagram, like sitting with my dog or sitting on a chair, like just something completely non-sexual. And I would get things like, "Ooh, I wish I was that chair." What? Like I would just get sexualized for nothing, doing literally nothing, just existing. So one day I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I think I made the account back in the end of 22. No, the end of 23, somewhere in there. Um, and it went crazy. It went wild. I had this moment where I was like, what if nobody subscribes? Like, what if this is, it does really well. I still have it. It does awesome. But I definitely,
Is that your biggest source of income? I'm sure it does really well.
yeah, even when I was working full time, it was more than what I made at the hospital.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
And was the motivation from the jump, was it, hey, you saw this as an opportunity to make money on the side? Or was there any part of you who kind of wanted to really lean into that, just embracing your body and embracing your image? Which one of those factors was the motivation to do it?
A little bit of both, and it was just cool to learn, like, about what people liked.
Yeah.
It may not I always say I am not someone to yuck someone else's yum. So it was cool to, like, learn, how people got to these things or why they liked these things. Um, so it was cool to learn. It was cool to express myself in that avenue, doing photo shoots and things like that. Like, as a woman, hell yeah. Like, that's so fun, so awesome.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I was at a crossroads recently. I was like, I'm either going to start a podcast or start an OnlyFans. And I ended up, I went with the podcast route, but I'm sure I'm leaving quite a bit of money on the table. Now, I do not have the level of confidence that you have as far as putting myself out there to that extent. Did you get backlash from the family when you did that?
Surprising, I got backlash from people online. My family, though, they were like very supportive. Like when I told my mom, because my mom, she's a senior master sergeant in the military. Like, I was like, oh my God, she's gonna hate me, she's gonna disown me. Um, and I told her, I was like, hey, like, I made this account, and I told her what it was about, like what was on it, like, she's like, okay, she's like, so you make money? And I was like, yeah. And I told her how much I made in the first week. And she was like, can I make an account? Oh my God, mother. My mom is in her 40s. Like, she's not a, no, no. So for her to say that, I was like, mom, like, what the fuck? So they were all supportive.
That's cool. And I mean,
Yeah.
when you first put something like really controversial out there on it, were you nervous? Were you like holding your breath, or what was that like?
Well, it was like, the only time I got a little weird about it was when people from like my hometown. So I lived in Kansas City for the majority of my adult life, but I'm originally from a small town by St. Joseph, Missouri, if you know that.
Oh yeah, the Chiefs, they do the training camp out at St. Joe.
Yeah. So I'm originally from DeKalb, Missouri, which is like 15 minutes away from St. Joe. So the only time that I would get weird about it was when people from my hometown would be on there, and I'm like, ew.
You see that new subscriber and it's a familiar name, and you're, wasn't that my English teacher? Was that
Hey, like, you were 2 grades behind me at DeKalb, like, it was a small
right?
school.
Well, anyway, I think that's super cool. Just that you were able to, you had the confidence to
Yeah.
put yourself out there, and then also I'm sure you're making a hell of a little income from it. But okay, so you climb the ranks in powerlifting, dominating, just set your all-time world record holder. Are you still the all-time world record holder
The Yes, for my weight class.
for? Yeah,
The
I'm not.
187, that was in the 181 class. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, pretty sure I still hold that. And then that is currently like the 3rd or 4th best squat in the world for a woman.
Did you have anyone you considered a rival during your powerlifting career?
Yeah, so when I first at the Kerm US Open, I was kind of head to head with Mariana Gasparian. She at that meet, because it was like a time where we were transitioning from Wilks to Dots, and that meet was still on Wilks. So I think I had beat her with Dots, but she had beat me with Wilks.
Can I stop you right there real quick? Do you mind, just for my non-powerlifting audience, can you give them a little bit of just an overview of dots and Wilks, those going
Yeah.
yards, what that means?
So basically, it is a coefficient. They take your body weight when you weigh in and the total weight that you lift. And I don't know the math equation that they do, but they create a number, and that's how they rank you. So I think my dot score is like six something,
Right,
80 or something like that. Um, so yeah, it's just a coefficient on how they rank us.
right. Yeah, so I mean, it's just something that takes body weight into account, other factors in conjunction with the total weight lifted. It gives you this metric that, the powerlifters are ranked by this metric as opposed to just purely looking at the numbers they hit on the platform.
Yeah.
So anyway, go on.
So she actually retired from powerlifting after that meet. And then, Christy Hawkins, she's still in the game. Samantha Rice, she's a 181, 198, incredibly strong, incredibly talented. Brianni, my best friend, is also in there. She holds the heaviest deadlift for a woman in the world. Also incredibly strong. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, some incredibly strong women there,
yeah.
and it's really cool to see how far the sport has come for women in recent years. I mean, some of the things you guys are doing, whether it's you or Briani and some of those other women you mentioned, it's just no one would have ever seen this coming a decade ago.
It's nuts. Like the bar just keeps getting raised. Like it's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure it's really cool to kind of be a part of that yourself and be one of the ones kind of paving the way. And women like you who are dominating and raising that bar, that's just doing so much for the sport in general, because now the women who are the younger generation of women, they see these numbers, they see what you guys have accomplished, they're going to be inspired by you, and that's just going to allow them to excel. And eventually some of these numbers are going to get broken, and that's just going to push
Yeah.
the female side of the sport so much further. um but let's talk about now your transition over to bodybuilding. So you mentioned earlier, and I actually don't think I knew this. Were you working with Matt Jansen prior to actually transitioning to bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I hired Matt when I was still powerlifting. He did my nutrition going into the 2021 current US Open.
Was it always important for you to have the nutrition side of things, or was that kind of later in your career that you took it upon yourself to work with a diet coach to augment your powerlifting?
Um, it was later, like at the beginning. I just ate what I wanted. It wasn't like a complete slob, but I definitely was not as diligent with right as I was with Matt and am now.
Yeah, and I mean, so nutrition is my specialty, and I work with a ton of lifters on
Yeah.
the nutrition side of things, whether it's power lifters, strongman competitors, and I think it's such an important missing piece of the puzzle. If you can really improve your body composition, that's going to go so much, that's going to take you so much further as far as your ability to recover, your ability to train harder, your ability to gain muscle tissue long term.
I think people are realizing that now because it's like, you know, and I please no one listening to this get offended, but you always used to hear the term fat power lifter. Like this diet just wasn't considered, it just wasn't held to as important as it is now. But now you have like legit athletes. Like the age of the fat power lifter is gone. Like
Yeah, I mean, you look at most raw powerlifters today, with the exception of some people, some men in the super heavyweight
yeah,
classes, but you look at a lot of people in the 242s, 275s, and the women, I mean, these people are jacked.
they're
These
great
people are
shape.
jacked.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned in my own career, as a lifter, how important it was to periodize my nutrition year round. And that's when I went over to the bodybuilding world and started working with bodybuilding coaches on my nutrition. And I did work with Matt Jansen myself.
Oh, well, I didn't
He
know that.
Yeah, he and I worked together we were together for about 6 months, and I had a fantastic diet with him. And I've worked with other people in the bodybuilding industry, Justin Harris, a guy named Cornelius Park and Stan Efferding. And
Nice.
when I realized how powerful the nutrition side of things was, not only for fueling performance and recovery, but just how much better I got long term by improving my body composition, taking phases of the year where I got really lean and then was able to rebound and grow muscle tissue. That was a game changer for me, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure something for you. So you mentioned you're doing this meet, Matt is doing your diet, and you're super lean, and he kind of gave you that push, like, hey, you should consider getting into bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Had that been in the back of your mind, or was that a spur of the moment thing?
Yeah, it had always been something that I was interested in, but I didn't know if I could actually do, because I know it's hard. Like dieting like that, it is very, very hard. To up it had always been there, but once I saw myself, and I'll send you the picture because I took pictures before I went to weigh-ins for the current US Open, and I was like, I could I could do that. Like, and it was just genuine curiosity, and I followed it. Um, because I just wanted to see if I could do it. I just wanted to see if I could be good at it, and turns out I was right.
Yeah, you were. And I mean, you already had a really good base going into bodybuilding, just the
Yep.
amount of muscle you had built over the course of your powerlifting
Yep.
career. Um, but you see a lot of powerlifters kind of dabble into bodybuilding, and they've kind of built a physique that's not conducive to bodybuilding. They get real, the thick midsection, small arms. They don't have the quad sweeps.
Yeah.
Whereas you, like, you had the huge quad sweeps, you had kind of the tapered waist.
Yeah.
So you already had a good base going for you.
Yeah.
Um, when you initially moved into bodybuilding, you said you were already lean. Was the initial phase, did you jump right into a prep, or did you go into
Yeah.
kind of an off-season growth phase?
No, I went straight into prep. I think it wasn't long because I did the current US Open was usually like in April, and I competed that June or July in a local show there in Nebraska. So it was maybe like 8, 10 weeks, maybe.
Got it.
Um,
And did you just catch the bug at that point?
I
You
did.
get hooked
That
right
really,
away?
uh, um, once I found out like pro cards and all that stuff, I was like, I could do that. Like, I could definitely do that.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't know, the process of bodybuilding is just so fun to me. Like the regimented, you do this at this time every day, like check it. Like, I don't know, I just really enjoy the process of bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I've never stepped on stage myself, although I do plan on stepping on stage this year. But man, I fell in love with the process of it, and just the structure of the diet. And you, let's say you go into a day, you've got 5 or 6 meals. It's like you've got 5 or 6 wins that you can check off every single day. Like every day is so important. Whereas, in powerlifting, it's like you might have 4, maybe 5 training sessions a week.
Yeah.
You're in the gym for 2 hours, whatever, and you can't always control how those sessions go. Whereas with powerlifting, or I mean, bodybuilding, you can control every meal that you hit. You can control your hydration, all of those things. And just, man, I love the process. It becomes obsessive. You're seeing the physical changes. Um, was it hard for you to, some guys, women, they start dieting down, then they feel like, oh, I'm getting small. The training probably changes a little bit. Did you feel
Yeah.
like you were losing some of your powerlifting prowess, or were you just fired up for it? You loved getting jacked.
I liked the changes that I was making. And I've seen my body at 205, I've seen my body at 153. And something that helps me, and because I know a lot of women struggle with this, and I'm sure men do too, is I look at it as like, okay, I'm this weight because it's serving a purpose. Like, I'm this skinny because it's serving a purpose. I want to get this pro card. Like, there's a purpose here. I don't.
Mhm.
I try and take the emotion out of it, but it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, the mental game of bodybuilding can be difficult. I mean, you're dieting, you're hungry, you're craving food, you're wanting to see these changes in the mirror, but we're our own worst judges when it comes to evaluating our own look. Because you're going from powerlifting, which is black and white. It's like you put a number on the bar, you either hit or you don't. Whereas
Yeah.
bodybuilding, it's subjective. It's, do I look good enough? And there's no yes or no answer to that.
It's hard.
So your first bodybuilding show, you have success with it. At that point, was it like, okay, let's put the foot on the gas and go
Yeah.
all in on bodybuilding?
Yeah. So Matt was like, "Hey, I really think you got something here. Like, I think you should really pursue this." And I was like, why not? Like, let's see what I got. So USA's was I can't remember the time in between, but I went on and did USA's. I got my pro card. And then I went and did the Tampa Pro, which was 1 week after USA's, and I got second place.
Yeah, I mean, just immediately seeing success in the sport.
Yeah.
Um, were you still trying to hold on to powerlifting at that time? You mentioned you kind of went back and forth. Were you like doing powerlifting in the off season, then prepping for bodybuilding in the in season?
Yeah. So I was still, I look back because I don't know how the hell I did it. So I still had the same powerlifting coach in bodybuilding in 2021. And I mean, I was still squatting 405. I was still deadlifting. I was still benching like heavy. And I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, I still train like I still had the main compounds in my training when I was bodybuilding. Now I don't. Um, but I mean, as soon because I did Tampa Pro and I did another powerlifting meet that year.
Yeah.
So I competed 5 times that year.
Jeez, that's a quite a busy year. Yeah. So okay, well, and you and I talked a little bit off the air, but you're going all in on bodybuilding moving forward, aren't you?
I am. I made the switch at the beginning of last year, and I don't know, I'm just happy. I'm just so happy. I love the process. Um I love just the day-to-day, the regimen,
Yeah.
I love it all. And after experiencing Olympia was the most incredible experience ever. I have
The better.
just I've never so like at Titan Grand Prix, that was the show I won to qualify for Olympia. I've I have a few, big accomplishments under my belt. So I know what winning feels like. But when they put me in the center at Titan Grand Prix and I did not move from the center, I knew I had won it. I I have never felt something like that. Like I was hyperventilating. Oh man. And I thought I would be nervous at Olympia because it's fucking Olympia.
Right.
And as soon I climbed the stairs, I saw the lights, I saw all the freaking people, and I just felt so much peace. I felt like right at home. Um, it was
Well,
awesome.
it sounds like you're making the right then moving into bodybuilding. Are you officially done with powerlifting at this point then?
No, because there's still so many goals that I want to go back and get. Like, I would love to get the #1 spot, #1 ranked overall. I would love to get the heaviest squat in the world for women. Um, I'd love to get a bench all-time world record. Like, there's still stuff in powerlifting that I would love to do. Eventually, I will go back. Um, I couldn't tell you when, though.
Got it. Okay. So for time being, we're all in on bodybuilding. I think that's awesome. And look, the reality is the money and the following is in bodybuilding. You
Yeah.
know, people I love seeing huge squats, benches, and deadlifts.
Yeah.
Most of the world, they don't know the difference. They see someone squatting 500, they see someone squatting 600. They don't know the difference. They just see heavy weight on the bar. But when it comes to a physique, people see an elite physique and they can immediately see that and be like, okay, whoa, that's cool. That's special. And bodybuilding, powerlifting, it's a niche sport, but bodybuilding it's a lot more mainstream. Tons of people are into it. You've got the entire fitness industry kind of behind bodybuilding, the supplements, the market for the apparel, the magazines, the sponsorship opportunities, all of that stuff. So for someone like you who's had so much success already and then you've got such a bright future in the sport, I only imagine long term that's going to be a great career move for you. Not to mention the training lends itself to longevity a lot more. With powerlifting, as strong as you're getting, it's only a matter of time before something snaps. And you stay in powerlifting a strongman long enough, you get under those massive weights, like eventually something's
It's
gonna happen.
gonna happen. Yeah.
Has it been hard transitioning to true bodybuilding training? Do you feel like you kind of had to give up some of the things you loved, or are you enjoying the machine, the cable, the dumbbell work, and that different style?
I do miss squatting. I have not done a barbell squat since April of last year. Um, so I do miss that, but I mean, it's bodybuilding training is not easy. Like pushing yourself to failure is not fucking fun. So I like it in that respect. But I do miss the compounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the hack squat, you do a nasty set of 10 to failure. I mean, that is absolutely brutal. I mean, if you are training effectively for bodybuilding, it is not easy.
No, it's not
Um,
fun.
but it is friendlier on the joints. That's
So, like,
for it.
I used to get wicked elbow tendonitis. Wicked. After every squat session. It was so freaking bad. And I couldn't tell you the last time I had elbow tendonitis.
Yeah, I'm doing, I'm all in on bodybuilding training right now. I'm doing, primarily machine work, and I'm training hard, training to failure, but just going into the gym, I'm not fearing for my life like I would going into a heavy deadlift session or a big strongman event session. And I'm leaving the gym feeling good.
Yeah.
Um, are you working with, do you have a coach programming your training, or are you doing that yourself?
Yes. So I actually just hired a new coach, like literally 2 days ago. His name is Justin Horrell. Um, awesome guy. I really like his perspective and his thoughts on things. His training though is, whew, I think yesterday was my first day on it. I had 9 movements and every set was like 15 plus reps
Okay.
with under a minute rest. So yeah.
Yeah, you'll be at risk for puking during sessions
Holy
like that.
shit. Oh,
Is he doing your diet,
yeah,
supplementation, all that as well?
he's in charge of all of it. So
Got it. And is it hard, putting all of that in the hands of a coach? Just someone who's as elite as you, as advanced as you've worked with a multitude of good coaches. Is it easy for you to kind of just give the reins completely over to a new coach at this point in your career? Or is there kind of like some stress, maybe in the back of your mind, concern?
it's easier now because I know more.
Right.
So when I was first starting out, I was pretty naive. I was pretty just clueless, I'll say. So I didn't know the right questions to ask. I didn't know when I was powerlifting, I had a coach who put me on like 3, 4 compounds and that really took a toll on my health. So now it's like I know, like, I feel comfortable saying, "No, I'm not gonna take that. No, I'm not," or, "Why are we doing this? Why is this in here?" So I feel more confident with it now than I would before.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that kind of leads me to another question. Now that you have made the move to bodybuilding, has the pharmaceutical supplementation side of things, has that changed for you coming out of
It's
powerlifting?
less. It's less, believe it or not. Like, so I worked with 2 coaches this past year, and they were very, very, health conscious. They were, not aggressive whatsoever with, PEDs. Um, to the point where I was like they would be like, "Are you okay if we, run this amount of primo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally fine." Like, and I told them, like, back in powerlifting, like, this is what I did. It was like primo and, a couple other compounds. So, um, it's definitely less now.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't need a ton when you've got the diet dialed in, you've got training dialed in. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're optimizing your health, you've got all the other variables in your lifestyle optimized. I mean, everything should work synergistically
Yeah.
together. If you're putting all your eggs in the supplement basket, you're doing yourself a disservice. That will only take you so far, and it will hit a point where it negatively affects you.
Yeah.
You know, everything in bodybuilding has got to work hand in hand together. If you're taking a bunch of drugs and then it's making it so you can't sleep or you can't eat, well, then that is negatively affecting you.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Has it obviously with women dealing with some of those exogenous hormones, you're dealing with a little bit more of a fragile situation. A man can take lots of stuff, take whatever, and at the end of the day, there's less, it's not as complicated. They can get away with things. Whereas with, Is it nerve-wracking for you as a woman kind of getting into more of some of the advanced stuff? You're taking a little bit more, do you worry about some of the virilization effects, or what if what I think is primo is actually not primo? What if it's something else and it's fake? Like, do you have to navigate some of those stresses and worries just as far as being a female taking some of these hormones?
Absolutely. Especially with virilization, like my hair is a hard stop. If anything happens to my hair and we're done. Like it's not happening anymore. Um, I haven't experienced like initially when I first started taking Anavar, I experienced a lot of changes. Um, but now these days I don't really notice too much. Um, as far as that goes.
Good. Yeah, well, it's, you just got to have a coach that knows what he's doing and
Yeah.
knows the stuff when it comes to that. But what phase of the year are you in with your are you growing right now? Are you in the off season?
So I'm in the off season. We have decided we're gonna shoot for Tampa Pro. So right now I am 26 weeks out. So
Got it. And
yeah,
how 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 far out will you kind of begin the diet in terms of going into okay, fat loss mode?
that is a really good question. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
Um, I'm in a interesting situation because I have a new coach and I also lack a lot of the base knowledge. So like in powerlifting, you start a prep 12, 14 weeks out. Obviously, bodybuilding, we need a little bit more time. I would definitely need a little bit more time. So I am honestly not sure.
Well, it's good that you're still at a pretty darn lean place. I mean,
Yeah.
someone like you, just with the physique you've built, the metabolism that you have, the fact you've, stayed pretty darn lean over these years, that's going to make prep a lot easier for you as opposed to someone who just really pushes their weight sky high in the off season. It's like every pound of fat you gain in the off season is a pound of fat you got to diet off in prep. So are you is food high right now? Are you someone who struggles with appetite, or is this do you love growing mode? You love eating, you're
I love
strong.
food. I love food. Right now we're kind of at like a maintenance point. And again, new coach, so I'm not exactly sure on what we will be doing these next few weeks. But yeah, love food, love growing. I enjoy being big. It's great.
Hell yeah. And do you have training partners? Are you training alone right now?
I don't. I train alone. I had training partners when I was in powerlifting. But right now I just kind of train on my own. I would love to have someone there to push me. Um, but I don't know, just me.
Well, at least you're in hell, like we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, at least you're in a competitive environment where
Yeah.
you walk into the gym and you look across the room and you see just other elite bodybuilders, you see elite powerlifters, and that's so motivating, and I'm sure fuels that competitive fire for you. Well, Hunter, that's freaking awesome. And we've been running for a little bit over an hour here, so I won't keep you much longer. But I'm super excited to see what you do over the course of these next 26 weeks. I can't wait to see you on stage, and it's been so fun watching you dominate in powerlifting. And
Thank you.
I'm in the bodybuilding mindset mode right now, so I'm fired up that
When
you're
is the
going.
next up on stage?
My goal is to do a show in 2025. I don't have a show picked out yet. Right now, I'm in growing mode. I'm in my off season mode, and as I near the end here, I'm gonna work with my guy Justin Harris. Shout out to he's at Troponin Nutrition on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, we'll look at a show and he'll prep me and diet down. And I've been doing the bodybuilding thing, the process of the diet, the growing, all that for a few years now. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm starting to love this so much. I love the way I look. And if I'm gonna suffer through a diet, like fuck it, I might as well have a show to light a fire under my ass and get up there and actually have a purpose for doing all this.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little bit interesting for me, getting up there on stage and posing and doing all that. That's going to be so out of my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah,
So I'll probably have to hit you up and just get some pep talks from you as far as putting myself out there like that.
for sure.
But Hunter, are you do you coach people at all? Are you
Don't. I've never had the desire, I guess, to be a coach. I'm more of a doer than a thinker.
understood? I mean, and
Yeah.
as an athlete in the game right now, like that's gonna absolutely just benefit you being able to focus on yourself. Are you right now? Are you a professional bodybuilder in the sense that this is your income? Or are you still in the hospital working?
Still in the hospital. Yep. I work actually at a hospital right across the street.
Do your coworkers do they just fanboy out about this stuff? Do they understand it? Do they realize who you are?
They're getting it. They'll be like, "Hey, is this you?" And they'll show me some random video on Instagram and it's me and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And they're like, "Holy shit, like, oh my god." Yeah. Um but yeah, they're sweet, they're so supportive. Like I've only been working there a few months and they're so supportive.
Well, just real quick, just before I get off this, because this interests me. My wife was a nurse, and
Yep.
she'd work night shifts and all that. Is it hard to manage bodybuilding training and dieting and stuff while you're working like that?
And this career specifically is not conducive to bodybuilding because it's like
Yeah.
I have to take call as well. So, I work a 8-10 hour shift. I go to the gym. I might get called in during that.
Yeah.
So I either, depending on how long the call takes, I'll either go back to the gym or I'll have to do that training session again tomorrow. So it's hard. It is very hard. But I also love what I do. So
Hell yeah. Well, nothing but respect for that. And I just respect who you are and what you stand for and just your mindset with everything. I think it's awesome. So
thank
thank you so much for doing this. And
absolutely.
I hope any female lifters, bodybuilders in my audience, look at what Hunter has done. Look at what other women in the iron game are doing, and fuck the stigma, fuck the dogma, fuck the haters. If this is what you love, man, go all in on it. Go all in on it. And I love the passion that you have for all this, and wish you nothing but the best with this bodybuilding prep. And you've got a fan in me. And where can my audience find you?
Mainly Instagram. It's Hunter M. Henderson. So
Okay, guys, go check her out. I'm sure link in bio. If you're this is podcast is hopefully a hell of a plug for the OnlyFans and all that. And guys, keep the comments and all that respectful,
absolutely.
please. But anyway, Hunter, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode of the podcast. See you later, Hunter.